Yo, what up, world? This is your boy Quan, and this is Wrestling with the Homies, your favorite podcast. As always, I'm joined by my good friend Jay Cooley.
Peace.
And my boy doing some type of weird dance on the bottom of the screen, Sylvan LeCue.
Hey, man. I'm celebrating.
Bro,
man.
what was that? What are we celebrating? What are we celebrating, man? What is this dance you're doing,
man. You
bro?
tell me, Quan. You tell me what.
Sylvan
I'm
came in here to gloat.
You know what
Sylvan
I mean?
came in here to gloat, and I know why he came in here to gloat. But before we get into all that, today's a little bit different. Today we got a friend of the show on this episode. We got a special guest, our boy Biggie. Our boy Biggie sat down with us, and he's gonna join us for this interview. Usually this would be the part of the show when me and Sylvan would scream at each other for 30 minutes, but this week we got a special guest, friend of the show, former WWE champion, former tag team champion, the meatiest man of them all, Big E. What up, Big E?
Not too much, man. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for having us, my brother.
Yo, my guy E, how you doing, bro?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Things are good. Can't complain. Life's good.
Man, first and foremost, thank you so much for being on Wrestling with the Homies. You are, for anybody that's watching, this is a special guest, yes, but this is definitely the homie, man. And I just want to say thank you again, bro, for being here. It really does mean a lot to us, for sure.
Nah, my pleasure, man, for real.
Yeah, so I know we met like on like some completely different tip. Like we were like, it was like rap, like completely rap. And I know we were introduced to each other by, was it Emilio?
I think it was Emilio. It was Emilio Sparks. Yep.
Emilio Sparks?
Yeah, so Emilio put you on to Far From Familiar. And then we started talking via DMs, just kind of on like some life tip. This was like back 2016. And man, I couldn't believe, I was a huge wrestling buff, but I couldn't believe that you gravitated to my music like that at all. So it's so crazy to see like how much we had in common, and fast forward to like us working together just on so many different things. It's just really cool to be able to like build a friendship with someone like you, man. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit, because the reason I got into wrestling, besides being a kid, right, like obviously, is that I also realized how much it mirrored rap, right? Like it was very much kind of like, oh, this is kind of the same thing, right? And us bonding over rap music as much as we did, like I wanted to get or as much as we do, I wanted to get like your opinion on how much do you feel like rap and wrestling is very much linked or interconnected or very much the same, because this is like, I got the rap book right here and the Intercontinental Championship right here, so it's like two peas in a pod to me. So you being such a huge fan, like how do those things like link up for you, and do you feel like there's a lot of synergy?
Oh, for sure, man, no question. I always felt like the two paralleled each other so often, and I also realized I would listen to so many of my favorite rappers would drop wrestling references in their music. And some of them would have old school references. Some of them would like clearly be watching the product today. They'd have new stuff too. And then I think too about the locker room, and so many of us are listening to hip hop. And to me, it just felt like, thankfully, like I feel like the business is now getting to a point now where you see Rick Ross on TV doing things with wrestlers. You see Wale emceeing a rap battle. So now we're getting there. But for the longest time, I kept thinking like, man, why aren't we doing more to bridge this gap? Especially in our company, oftentimes we would bring in acts, but we're not, I don't want to say any names, but if you know some of the acts they were booking a few years ago, it's like, man, they were hot like 15 years ago. Let's get up to the times now. But I also think like with the commonalities between rap and wrestling, to me, it's all about getting your persona across. Like in hip hop, you have guys who really aren't as concerned with personality, and they can rap their ass off. But then you're just in that lane. Same thing with wrestling. You have guys who aren't really concerned with the pomp and the circumstances and the gimmick and cutting a promo, and they're just wrestlers. But that puts you in a certain box. That doesn't allow you to get to that next level, to cross over. So I always feel like, much like in hip hop, it's about when you have the gimmick, the persona, the personality, and you can spit, that makes a complete artist. Also in wrestling, when you have the gimmick and you can go in ring, that also makes a complete performer. So between just the similar lifestyles of trying to, kind of like the way we go in the lab and think about our promos and think about the way we want to structure things, to me reminded me so much of like how a lot of artists approach their craft as well. So it just felt like, to me, it just blended so naturally. And I saw so much of pro wrestling in hip hop and vice versa. So it's been beautiful to see more of that gap being bridged lately. But yeah, man, just as a hip hop head and as a fan, it's been so cool to see that wrestling is starting to be more accepting of hip hop. And then seeing just the amount of, seeing West Side Gun just always has, wrestling references in his music. So many artists do. That's like, I became friends with Wale because of that as well, because he was clearly a huge wrestling fan. So it's just, I love seeing that connection between hip hop and wrestling. You see what he's done with Wale Mania. You see West Side Gun fronts, in the front row all the time. So I love that these two are kind of like starting to really merge in so many ways.
Yeah, man. I've always felt the exact same way, and like seeing all these guys truly embrace it, especially in like the hip hop community, is just really reassuring. And I really hope that there's just more of that from the wrestling community as well, because that marriage to me is just so synergetic. And I wanted to kind of like not really deviate, but kind of like build upon that, because you've also had your hands in a lot of like passion projects over the past 2 years. And the one I wanted to speak most about is Our Heroes Rock, because it feels like you're going into the space of hip hop, and also tying it, obviously it's tying back to you because you are who you are, but speaking on Black history and also being able to bring, rappers for children as well. Like, I wanted you to speak a lot more on Our Heroes Rock, and what that journey has been like since 2021 when you made the announcement for the project, and how it's been going down.
Yeah, man. Thank you for bringing that up. That has been for us a real labor of love. And when I say us, it's my partners, Jonathan Davenport, who's actually designed our wrestling gear. So anything you've seen the New Day in from 2015 on, like, that's all Jonathan Davenport who's designed that, and Andreas Hale. And for us, like, Andreas. that's the homie too. So for us, it really was. So it all started really with the pandemic and George Floyd. And I feel like, so many of us, I was just having all these conversations, these heartfelt, emotional conversations with Black men. And we were all just, I think too, also because the world stopped, it kind of forced us to sit with our feelings. Typically, if I was on the road, if it wasn't a pandemic, it's something horrible happens like George Floyd, but then you're on a flight the next day, or you have to make the next town. Yeah. So you have these distractions and you're not really sitting in those feelings. But because everything came to a halt, it felt like there was no escape. So, I was thinking back to when I got pulled over in college because someone said that one of my teammates had a gun in the car, which was false. And we had, cops essentially, I don't know where they came, but like almost like literally out of the bushes, pointing guns at us. And I would have all these other conversations with young Black men who had no criminal record, who never gotten anything, who had bad run-ins with the law. And, so we're just all sitting with these emotions and this frustration. And, for a while I felt like, man, I wanted to do more to give back, to use my platform to give back, but I couldn't really find the thing. I'd done some things like when WrestleMania was here in Tampa, I raised some money to give to a local food bank, but I felt like I had to do more. And finally, I sat and I was thinking, I had so many of my non-Black friends reach out and ask, okay, how can I do more? What can I learn? Like, they wanted to help. And I thought, I can't really control the storylines in wrestling. I can't control all those things. But what I can control is my gear, the things I wear. So I sat down with Johnny and my gear designer, and I said, what if we did something akin to Schoolhouse Rock, but for Black historical figures? And so that was really the origin of that idea. And Andreas came along after the end of that run and said, this needs to be more. So we eventually put our heads together and we decided to have this Kickstarter. We raised money through WrestleMania, and, we got so much love and support to raise $130,000. And we started working on this film that is now finished. We absolutely are in love with it. It's going to have its world premiere at Urban World in New York City the first week of November. We're really excited about that. But to get an original song from Rhapsody, who just killed it, we're covering the story of Ruby Bridges. So we're using hip hop. We're using sci-fi 3D animation to tell the story of Ruby Bridges. And, I had so many people when I was wearing the gear. I had people backstage. Some of them were in their 20s. Some of them were in their 50s. And they could tell me the Schoolhouse Rock jingle, the one that How a Bill Becomes a Law. And it's what like that. And that series is so old, man. It's so old. Right. But yet I just love the way that music can just burrow its way into your brain, and you have this jingle and now you're remembering something. So I thought, man, what if we can do that for our Black historical figures that people, especially in my state of Florida, are trying to erase the history of, especially, people who aren't, they're not getting their due, man. And to me, if we forget our history, if we forget the people who came before us, the people like Ruby Bridges, who, man, this is a 6-year-old girl in 1960 who was just, she had to go to school. That's all think about being 6 years old and you're just going to school and you have a ton of people, some of them with black dolls being, in fake caskets, like essentially hanging her in effigy, people yelling things, just a little girl trying to go to school. And to me, if you can't have empathy for that, if you can't understand that situation, how wrong this is, something deeply wrong with you. So we just thought her story was one to really be celebrated, one to be told, and not just, I think so much of our media and Black media, of course, like we as Black Americans, our history is fraught with pain, it's fraught with struggle, it's fraught with all these terrible things. But man, we also experience joy. We also create, we also do so many positive things. So for us, we really didn't want it to be, you get so much of what I call trauma porn, and we didn't want that. We wanted to tell the story, which can be difficult, but it's really about celebrating her. It's about, she really is this lesson of bravery, of just going out there, against all the odds, and as chaotic as life can be, just being brave, just taking that first step. So we just love her story. And man, I think I just have amazing partners, and the way we're able to tell this story, to me, I'm really, really proud of. So that has been the real labor of love. And the goal really is, this is a short film and we're treating it as that. But we want this to be more as well. Our hope is to tell more of these stories using the same vehicle, and make it fun for kids, And we use this metaphor of essentially, we think about it as, when you were a kid, at least when I was a kid, sometimes when I was younger, my parents, if I was sick or I needed my vitamins, they would take the vitamins, they'd mash them up, and they'd put them in the applesauce. And then you eat the applesauce, you don't even really know you have the vitamins and the nutrients along with it. So that's how we see this project as well. We want you to sit down and just be entertained. Like you're sitting down just to eat that applesauce, but little do you know, you're going to walk away with this jingle about Ruby Bridges in your head. You're going to know her story. You're going to know what she went through, and you're going to walk away, hopefully, a better person.
Absolutely, man. Man, I really appreciate you expanding on that even more, because it's just so important, especially, on the podcast. Like, it's very important for us to make sure that we're touching on these topics, especially because of the lack of representation of us in the wrestling community. And the fact that you're doing something incredibly actionable about that, using your platform, especially from what you built by being who you are, is just really incredible.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. I was stopped, man. So when I was wrestling, actively wrestling all the time, I love pushing the envelope, pushing the line with nonsense, with silliness. And I always thought, like, man, if I can come out here and push the envelope, talking about like llama penises with The Rock and all the nonsense that we did, if I can, let me see how far I can go. Let me use that same courage to do something important. You know what I mean? So as much as I love the nonsense, I also think, like, man, for me to be in this position and not do something, that benefits our people, or at least attempts to, just felt like it really would be a huge missed opportunity on my part. So thank you for saying that, man. But I feel in many ways it's my responsibility. I've had all these opportunities open to me, and the scripture says, to whom much is given, much is required. So I feel like it's my duty. It's part of the responsibility.
Absolutely, man. And I kind of wanted to take that more into your passion for kids and your passion, obviously, for representation in wrestling. I wanted to get more into who you are as as just a person, but also the moments in wrestling that kind of meant the most to you, right? So we all know you being a part of the New Day, obviously that, first off, best tag team of all time, facts. But obviously we know that not only were you guys appealing to the masses, but children obviously gravitated towards you guys, right? Yeah. It was just a real thing. And so I wanted to see, before you even got to the New Day, right? When you were coming up in wrestling and doing what you had to do, obviously there's a learning curve. What was that moment in coming into that learning curve where you're okay, or more, what was that match that was oh, you know what? I think I'm actually really I'm really good at this. I'm really great. Can you recall that match? Can you recall that moment? Was there a time, or was it just like a journey that you were kind of like, oh, okay, I think I'm getting comfortable every time?
Yeah, it's funny. Like for me, I never feel like I had a eureka moment. I never feel like I had a moment where I made it or like everything clicked. I can think of certain moments where I had a certain match and I felt like, man, I killed it. Like, so I had this one match with Seth Rollins prior to the New Day. So this is probably 2014. And at the time, I was kind of floundering in my career. I had done the stuff with Dolph, which was amazing. Right. Then after Dolph, I was moved with AJ. And I think this was before I had the IC title. But anyway, so I was kind of at a lull in my career and I was trying to figure it out. So it's either 2013 or 14. But I had a match on Main Event. And at the time, and kind of now, like Main Event it's a show, it's an opportunity to work, but it's not on national TV. It's not a lot of, but it's an opportunity to go out there. And, they had bigger stars on the show too. So I actually had a match with Seth Rollins. And I remember kind of like, you think you know what you're doing, but you're not being booked the way that you'd imagine. So you start to doubt yourself and wonder, like, am I as good as I think? Like, can I actually do this? So I had this match with Seth. And, Seth's incredible. To me, if you can't have a good match with Seth Rollins, you probably don't deserve to be in the business.
Right.
But so we have this match, 2 segments, we go back and forth. And like, to me, like, it was a damn good match. So I remember feeling good about that. But I get to the back and, Brodie, my good friend, rest in peace to him, peace. Luke Harper, pulled me aside and just said, man, you should be proud of yourself. Like, that was a hell of a match. And at the time, when you have these feelings of doubt and lacking self-confidence, those moments, by the way, remind me sometimes, like sometimes I'll see people who are doing a good job or impressing me. And oftentimes I would think like, man, they know they're killing it. I don't need to say anything. But I realized after that, sometimes it's just a simple word at the right time from the right person that really lifts you up, that puts you right where you need to be. So all the times that I thought people were dope and kept it to myself, that taught me, nah, man, let people know, because you don't really know what people are going through at that time. You don't know if they need a word at that time, if they need a moment of encouragement. So that, man, that's almost like a decade ago, and that still sticks with me because I always respected Brodie. I respected him in the ring. I thought like just a super talented guy, and to go out there and to pull me aside. And, we got really close later. At the time, we were still cool, but we weren't like the best of friends. He didn't owe me anything. For him to pull me aside and say that, like, that gave me the confidence to think, yeah, I belong here. I belong in the ring with the best around. And, I had a little, ups and downs before getting with the New Day again. But then that set me on a path where we were just, it was all uphill from there afterwards. So I will never say, I don't think I ever really had I made it moment or like, yeah, I'm great at this. But I think that moment really just gave me what I needed to keep going, keep climbing.
Absolutely. And speaking of Brodie Lee, like speaking into your life and actually telling you things, we know this is a journey, right? Mm-hmm. Very much like rap for me. Like there are certain people that came into my life that really gave me a lot of game on how to maneuver or how to like approach things. Was there anybody that you feel like you've learned the most from, whether it's from a relationship or just from observing in your wrestling career that kind of set you on your trajectory? Because we know those like moments just in terms of whether it's just game or just coming to the locker room and like, giving a different perspective on how things are going changes a lot in terms of how you like treat your career and maneuver around.
Yeah, of course, man. I always feel like when you're in the ring with guys who are better than you or more experienced than you or bring something different to the table, you learn from everyone in different ways. But I will say the one person that I will mention is Michael Tarver. So if you remember Michael Tarver from the NXT days, Michael Tarver, throwback for a lot of y'all. Yes. Mm-hmm. So Tarver always to me, so we were in FCW together. So I kind of like when I first started wrestling, he was there. And mind you, NXT's blown up to be this big developmental, program. And now it's on national TV. Everyone knows what it is. But at the time in FCW circa 2009, when I got signed, we felt like we were on an island. The only way to watch FCW TV was you had to live in Hillsborough County, where Tampa was. And it was on like local TV, like once a week, like bare minimum. So we felt very much disconnected in many ways from WWE. But anyways, Tarver, this is probably a year or so into my career, and I was still trying to figure out who I was as a wrestler. Like, what is your persona? Who are you besides just a muscular dude? Like, what are you? What are you trying to convey when you go out there? And he was the first person. We ended up, randomly, they kind of married us. So we had 6 consecutive matches. I think one might have been on FCW TV. The rest might have been on house shows. And mind you, we're wrestling like at ABC Auto, is this used car lot. So we had like a match outside in a parking lot. We're at like, VFW halls. It's just, you're just learning your craft. And it's very humble. Like I was making $500 a week at the time, under WWE contract. So it's like, man, it's like, if you really love this, that's the only way you're sticking around, because it's not easy. But Tarver and I ended up working 6 consecutive matches, and he was the first person who sat me down. So we would sit in the ring, and he would just talk to me like, this is how I see you as Black Superman. And he just in those conversations of how I should carry myself, of how I want the audience to connect with me. That was the first time where I started the wheels really started turning on just being more than a guy who put on trunks and went out there. It's like, how do you separate yourself? How do you carry yourself? How do you adapt the way you work? Because not everyone should work the same, just like in rap. You can't just all rap the same or it's all forgettable. Right. Like, how do you stand out? How do you set yourself apart? And for me, I always thought like, man, I'm not, 7 feet tall. And there are guys who are bigger than me, but like, what do I bring to the table that's unique? And Tarver, not just, even from an in-ring moves perspective, he helped me there, but just from a psychology perspective, which in wrestling, they always tell you is the most important, like the way you carry yourself, what your persona is, how you connect with the crowd, and your moveset all revolves around that. The way your entrance all revolves around that. So I always give a lot of love to Tarver. It's cool. I saw him a couple of years ago randomly in the gym. I always feel like I owe him a lot, because at that time that allowed me to take the next step, because you really don't know at the time at FCW, man. It's like, man, I can be fired at any moment. I'm not the son of someone famous. I'm not an indie darling. I could be gone tomorrow. So for me to be able to take that step forward at that time might have been just what it took to get me above the cutting line. You know what I mean? You never know when it's your time to be gone, because there are moments where I thought like, man, this could be it. So a lot of love for Tarver, and I thank him dearly for pulling me aside and really giving me game.
I got a question for you, Biggie.
Incredible, man.
That's
incredible.
Yes,
I got
sir.
a question because you mentioned being in Florida Championship Wrestling and not knowing whether, you might be fired the next day. Was it ever difficult being down there, knowing that like a lot of the guys you were down there with had prior experience in this wrestling thing, and you were pretty much a newcomer to it all?
Yeah, so it's just a lot of uncertainty, man. It's for me. So I was in grad school at Iowa, and this opportunity kind of came out of nowhere. And I always thought, in many ways, it kind of felt like I was playing with house money. Like wrestling, I grew up a fan, but it's not like I sought the job out. It wasn't necessarily my dream. But when I did the tryout, I had so much fun. And I thought maybe one day I can be good at this. And I really wanted to be great at it. So there was a lot of uncertainty when I was down there, and there were guys who wrestled 10 years on the indies and they got signed. There were guys, I think for me, more of the uncertainty came in when a guy like Rusev or Miro comes in and like, damn, he's about my height. He can work. Like he already has prior experience. He's a big barrel chested dude. So you start seeing other guys who like might be slotted for you, because we saw it as essentially like you're kind of the owner, the chairman's, you're in this toy box. And it doesn't matter if you're the best or if you're the most over. He just decides, hey, I need to call someone up. Oh, that's the toy I want to play with. Yeah, I'll pick that up. I'll put him on my main roster, or I'll put her. You know what I mean? Like sometimes there's no rhyme or reason. It's not about being the best. It's not about being the best promo sometimes. It's just whoever the booker is on Raw or SmackDown, or whoever's making those decisions on who comes up. What do they want at that moment? What toy do they want to play with? And sometimes, you have a certain, this is how my toy is dressed. And he's like, nah, I want to put a skirt on you. All right, I guess I'm wearing a skirt now. You know what I mean? Right. So it's that for me was just, I thought about the other people that were kind of had similar comps as me. And you see other people like that come in. We had like big bodybuilders come in as well. So it's just a lot of uncertainty, because sometimes you don't know what they want. You don't know what they're looking for. And when you're going through that daily grind, man, I was in FCW for about 3.5 years before I got called up. So it's every day of not knowing, of going to practice, of doing street team, driving to these local shows, and just hoping and praying, like, is this worth it? Am I wasting my life? Am I ever going to get called up? So it's just a lot of uncertainty and a lot of factors of just not really knowing. So I was just really fortunate to get called up. But yeah, man, it's a lot of those thoughts of just wondering, like, is this my time? Will it ever be my time?
So I got a question for you, Big E. So you was mentioning FCW. Did you receive any flack from others that didn't make it and you made it, being that they've been doing this their whole life? You wanted to be a football player and then you just transitioned over to wrestling. Hey, I'm good at it. So did you receive any flack from those guys?
So I didn't directly because for the most part, I was very introverted and quiet. And I think, I for the most part, I just tried to shake people's hand, try to be respectful. I was never, coming in talking to, I'm a football player, I deserve to be here. I always stayed low. And I think that allowed me to gain some modicum of respect from my peers and also not to have the target on their back. But you bring up a great point in that a lot of the football players, especially at that time, that were coming in, like, it was a stain against you in many ways. Like, for the guys who had grinded for so long, a lot of them were offended that, football players were coming in with no experience and getting these opportunities that they'd worked a decade for. Corbin actually, for a lot of people, I don't know, he might be in some of our phones still as Football Tom, but people would call him Football. His real name's Tom Pestat, but people call him Football Tom because it was this feeling like this guy who had a cup of coffee in the NFL, got to play in the NFL for a bit, is coming in and taking our spots. And oftentimes, like, I didn't come in because I didn't get to play in the league. I didn't come in with a higher salary, but a lot of the guys who had played in the league, they weren't coming in at $500 a month or $500 a week. They were coming in at, some of them double that, some of them much more. So there was some bitterness with that. But for me, man, I always think, I never hold any bitterness against anyone who, some people were down there for 3 months and got called up. Some people were down there for years and years and got called up. But as we know, in entertainment, it's not a meritocracy. It just is not. And you have to accept that. So for me, I never held any bitter feelings, but I think there were some people who felt that way. Like, this has been my passion. This is all I wanted to do. I went the indie route. I've toiled for this, and now seeing other people pass me up. But thankfully, I mean, people might've said things behind my back, but as far as I know, I kind of skated by a lot of that.
They're always going to say things behind your back. You know how that goes. Sure. But hey, you made it. So what was the most challenging aspect when you first started your professional career, both physically and mentally, being that you had zero experience?
Probably the hardest things for me were, one, being an introvert and learning how to be an entertainer. Like, that took some time. That took a lot of time. And also another thing I struggled with was making it look like I was hurting guys without actually hurting guys. That took me a while to figure out, because, you come in at the time I was, bricked up. You come in and your stuff can't look bad. Some of the lighter guys whose stuff is crisp, but you can see they're not really touching them. They can get away with that. But for me at my size, like, they always tell you, lay it in. It has to look good. So it took me a while to figure out how to be safe with guys, but also make it look like I was killing them. So that took a bit. But going back to really learning how to be an entertainer, that for me was really a process. And I think there was always something within me. Like, I love with my very close knit group of friends, I always felt like I could open up, and I was the one who was always trying to get people to laugh or smile. So that was always a thing. So I would do things like that with my two sisters when I was a kid. I would do that with my close friends. But, for me, it often took people really getting to know me and me being comfortable with them for me to get out of that shell. But you don't really have that same luxury as an entertainer. You have to be able to just turn it on and go out there and connect with people. So, that took me a while. That was an adjustment. And I always encouraged wrestlers and talent. Look, even if cutting promos is difficult for you now or uncomfortable or you just don't like it, I'm telling you, do it. Practice it over and over. Because to me, I think it's just about reps. It's just about doing it over and over and over again. And it's also just about trying things. I think too many people in our industry are afraid to look silly. They're afraid to do foolish things. And you know me, if you've seen me be wrestled the last decade, I am not afraid to make myself look like a fool. I do a lot of that. But I always tell people that too, because, it has opened so many doors for me in entertainment because I can talk, because I learned how to cut a promo, because I learned to connect with people. And if you only are a wrestler, if that's all you want to do, if that's all you are, nothing wrong with that. But your ceiling is finite. You can only get to a certain level. But the opportunity to MC for a USFL team, to do voice acting stuff, to do some of the acting stuff, all these other opportunities that have opened to me that I love, that I'm so glad I get to do at 37 years old. And these are things that I can do into my 40s and 50s and beyond because it's a skill that I worked on. So I always try to encourage young wrestlers. Like, I'm not saying you have to be the next Rock, but be the best you can as a talker, as a communicator, because it's not easy. It takes time. It takes reps, but it'll be worth it. It really will.
Absolutely. Patience, practice, hard work, dedication.
Exactly.
So you're going through this, your journey. You go through the football, you go through the powerlifting. You signed your first contract in 2009 with WWE, the company we all grew up on. What was your family and friends' reaction? Did they know you was training for this moment, or it just happened out of nowhere?
No, man, it was kind of out of nowhere. One of the things I do remember is kind of people's shock, because I was so quiet. A lot of people were like, you got to be a personality out there, right? Like, I had some of my teammates were like, you got to talk, right? Like that's a part of the job. So there was a lot. That was kind of the surprise, and then. For me, football was college football. Just at Iowa in 2.5 years was a torn left ACL, a torn right ACL, a torn left pec, a broken right patella, and a torn right patella tendon. So I take a medical hardship and I'm done. And then to jump back into something where, you're taking power bombs, you're, getting hit with ladder. Like, I didn't learn my lesson either. So I think there were some people who were also concerned, like, hey, man, you just went through this injury-riddled career, and now you want to jump back into something physical as well. But, man, for me, I think I've always been someone, I don't know how to exist without goals, without career goals. Like, I always feel like I need to be moving towards something. That feeling of being stagnant for me is like death, really. I can't sit still with doing nothing. And I just love having goals and progressing towards something. So for me, it was a challenge that I was really excited about, man. The opportunity to hopefully one day be good enough at this to get onto Raw and SmackDown, to do the thing that I loved as a kid. Really amazing. So it was just, I kind of just treated it as like, I'm just going to give it my all, and whatever happens, happens. I get why people might have their reservations about how I can do this, from a personality standpoint. I get that, but I just wanted to give it my all and see. So, man, I feel it's so wild, man, how quickly a lot of these things go. I know all the old timers say it, and it's hard to really understand and comprehend when you're young. But then when you look back and you're like, damn, it's been 14 years and counting that I've been with this company, a job that I just kind of took on a whim. And like, to have 14 years fly by like that is wild. But man, I'm always I feel like all the leaps that I took in my life, I never felt like I was ready for them. I just knew that I wanted more out of my life. So I just kind of turned off that doubting part of my brain, or I quieted it for a second. I just made the leap, and I'm always so glad I did. And I always encourage people like, man, make that leap, because if you don't, like, that regret is something that it would have been hard for me to live with. I'm so glad that even when I didn't think I could do the things that I ended up doing in my life, I made the leap, and I'm glad that I did.
Well, we're glad that you did too, because now you're a part of one of the greatest fractions of all time.
Appreciate you.
So, you put on so many great matches in the ring. You're so great. Your stamina wise, your mic skills. Every athlete has that one special ritual that they do before a match. LeBron, he throws a chalk in the air. Marshawn Lynch, he eats Skittles and drink a shot of Hennessy. What is your special ritual, if you have one?
Oh, man. I never was really rich. I guess I don't see it really as a ritual, as part of my preparation. For one, I feel like wrestlers always look bad if you're dry. I just couldn't stand to look dry. So I use baby oil for TV. So that's always a thing, you got to oil up. But sometimes I oil up too early if it's something later in the show. So I have to put on another coat of oil. But on house shows, I don't use baby oil all the time. I don't like, it feels heavy on you. I don't like all that. So I use cocoa butter on the house shows. I think it still gives you a good sheen. I like the sheen of the baby oil. So it was always baby oil for TV, cocoa butter for house shows. So it's not really in the same vein as ritual, but I guess it's a little thing that I did.
It's like a tune-up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a tune-up.
So let's get into the product today. How much of the product do you watch today? And is it hard to watch knowing that you can't be out there?
No, in fact, it's like the opposite, honestly. Like it's been fun for me to sit back as a fan and see the landscape change. And I was talking to Woodsy about this recently. But it's so wild how quickly, and Breeze, I was talking to Breeze about this. It's wild how quickly the locker room can change. Because now looking at, I watching main roster TV and, Judgment Day, they're a huge part of the show. Obviously, seeing Judgment Day, seeing Dom being such a big part of the show. And mind you, like before I got hurt, Dom was like just starting to get there. So it's been cool to see all the turnover. And it feels like so many of the guys from my generation, like, you become the OG, the old head real quick. It's jarring. It really is jarring how quickly you become the old guy. I was looking around the locker room, like, when I had the title, I looked around, I'm like, damn, I didn't come up with any of these cats in the locker room. And not like, no offense to them, but it's just seeing that shift. So that's what I've been enjoying, is just really seeing new people step up, seeing Rhea Ripley. Like I always, as soon as I, first seeing her work, and knowing how good she was, I always felt like, man, she should be doing so much more. She should be in such a better position. And now seeing these last 6-9 months, however long it's been, seeing her ascend to the point where like I always thought she deserved to be, is so so cool, man. So that's the part I like too. Watching NXT as well. Watch this past week that, seeing how stacked it was, I had to tune in. So it's cool to see, now. Yeah, man. And now I got the chance to go down to the NXT TV a couple months ago, seeing guys like Carmelo, seeing, I've done a couple appearances with Braun Breaker, seeing the amount of women down there in the NXT who are killing it. And also, I gotta stop and just talk solely about the amount of dope black wrestlers that there are now in NXT on the main roster. That did not exist in 2009. We had dope black wrestlers, don't get me wrong, but you couldn't look at the main roster and watch one Raw and see 8 to 10 different black male and female wrestlers. Like that wasn't really a thing. And one thing I love too is they're not just getting these opportunities merely to fit a quota, merely because, we need some talent. No, when you watch Bianca, she deserves to be there because she's the dopest. She deserves that position because she's just that dope. When you watch Carmelo, he deserves that spot because he's that dope. Man, and seeing the crop in NXT, and even getting to do, like, for me now, a lot of my roles is it's doing the tryout stuff, it's doing the NIL Campus Rush stuff. So I'm getting to see some of the cats that are just now starting in NXT. I was there, like we met them on campus, or we met them at the tryout, and that's really cool. But I'm really cool. I mean, it's been really cool to see the growth of wrestling in general. But for me, I'm really proud to see how many incredible black wrestlers there are that bring something unique to the table. Like, who aren't just like, hey, I'm a guy or a girl who goes out there and I do moves. Like, no, you bring something cool to the table. You bring your culture to the table. You bring something unique to the table. So it's been the nice part about not being active right now is being able to sit back and observe and really just be a fan.
So this is a very tribal industry. Wrestling fans can be very tribal. It's a very this side versus that side industry.
Yes.
What's your opinion on that? And do wrestlers play into that at all? Because we all know Xavier Woods and Kenny Omega are like best friends. Like, give it to me.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can't speak for everyone. I'll speak for my experience, from my perspective. Another company means more money for all of us. It means more opportunities for my friends. I got a ton of friends over on the other side. It means like everyone has to raise their game. Everyone has to step it up. And look at the numbers, man. Look at like the amount of times I get emails or I see tweets about, oh, this has been the highest grossing fast lane ever. This has been the most attended live event ever in this town. Like it's record breaker after record breaker after record breaker. And there are a lot of factors, but I think competition is a real reason that's a factor as well. To me, this has been the hottest time for the industry in what, 20 years? Over 20? Like it's been a minute, right? So I feel like I could only speak to myself and the people that I surround myself with in the industry. And we're all like, I'm rooting for everybody, man. I'm rooting for everybody. So it's so cool, man. I have a bunch of people on the other side that I'm fans of, that I like to big up, that I reach out to. So I think a lot of that, people button heads, tribalism nonsense, a lot of it's between fans. From what I've seen, most of us as performers, we're so happy there's an alternative. For one, like my last deal in 2019 was life-changing money. And I have to say, thank you. Thank you for having a competitor out there who helped raise the floor. Like, my bank account is fatter because of competition. So, like, man, I love y'all for starting another organization that's killing it right now. So, a lot of that tribalism stuff, I think, is between fans right now. And it's cool when it's fun, but when it starts getting mudslingy and nasty and all that other stuff, it's just like I don't get it.
Right. So Big E, in a perfect world, you never get injured. The neck is as strong as can be. Who is Big E's dream WrestleMania opponent? Let us know.
Oh, that's a good one, man. That's a very good one. It's like I feel once you're around so long, you wrestle so many of the same people. I would have to say, it's been cool. It's been well documented that my favorite wrestler of all time is Goldberg. And I'll have to say, if forced to pick one, it would be Goldberg. So it's just so dope for me because he was my guy. I love WCW. I grew up in Florida. So growing up, we got WCW. It's so interesting because a lot of my friends on the East Coast in New York, they didn't come up with WCW, so they were never into it. They didn't get it. But I loved WCW as a kid, and Goldberg was my guy. For one, I just love, again, the whole I don't like doing the big meaty men thing because I don't want to wear it down. I love that people still use it all the time, and I don't want to be the one. I don't want to be the one that be the reason that people get tired of it. So I don't use it too often. But I love that it's taken on a life of its own. But I love this big jack dude who came out there who had the crowd losing their minds. And then I got to meet him at a signing. And this had to be in the late 90s. This is when WCW was still around. This is before WCW folded. So, man, I'm probably, 12, 13 years old, maybe even younger than that. And I remember I have this vivid memory of stopping in. He had an in-store signing at like a Walmart or something in town. And I was on my way to church with my dad. And at the time, I think we were doing we lived in church. My dad's a preacher. So we had like 4.5, 5 hours Sunday morning. I think we went home and then we came back and for another 2 hours. But in between there, we had enough time to stop by and say what's up to Goldberg. So I remember being in line and I remember he had a smile on his face. I remember he complimented me and my dad on our suits and signed for me. And mind you, this experience with him, I don't know, maybe lasted 30 seconds, a minute tops. But that's something that's always burned in my brain because I'm sure he was jet lagged. I'm sure he was tired. I'm sure he'd been there all day. Whatever it was, he had all these excuses and he could have just phoned it in. But that memory was so positive to me, like your guy, your idol, and he leaves a positive memory with you. That's why, there was WWE cameras caught it at the Royal Rumble, I think in 2020 or 2021, or 2021, actually. Something backstage with Goldberg. And just for me to be able to say, you know what, it might have meant nothing to you, but thank you so much for being cool to me, 25 years ago. It really meant a lot to me. Like that to me is one of my very favorite memories of my childhood. I went to Underground Atlanta when I was a kid, and I wish I still had that shirt, but I had a Goldberg shirt too, like 25, 30 years ago. That was my guy. So to meet your hero, and he's the man, he's incredible. That meant a lot to me. So Goldberg, that's my long-winded way of saying Goldberg.
Hey, Goldberg versus Big E. I would love to see it. Now, look, Big E, we would love to sit here and talk to you all day, but we know you got things to do. So we're going to end this with
I really don't, though. I really don't. I mean, y'all can keep going. Y'all really can keep going.
In that case, I gotta ask because Sylvan wanted to ask, but he dodged it a little bit. He might be a little scared, but I'm gonna go ahead and ask you. Before we came on this podcast, we were discussing a moment that John Cena had in the ring a little while ago when he might have used the bathroom on himself in the ring. And we wanted to know, Big E, have you ever had a moment like that in wrestling where something might have happened, you couldn't hold it in?
Let me think. Wrestling, I've been good. My bowels have been intact. My sphincter is crazy, man. My sphincter control is crazy, bruh. Like I'm able to keep it all in. But I will say, I would be lying if I didn't say squatting and deadlifting has gotten me many times, man. I've been in the gym sometime. You got some heavy weight on your back. And look, man, I take lifting seriously. So if I feel it coming, I got to complete the rep. I just got to. So it's why I wear leggings and whatnot. So there have been multiple occasions, unfortunately, squatting and deadlifting where I completed a set and I had to go clean some things up. I'm not proud of it. It's not what I chose. I don't want this life. This is where I'm at. So thankfully, I've never soiled myself in ring, but in the gym, I was gonna say dozens. I don't know. Is it over a dozen times? Sadly, it's been a while. It's been a while.
Oh no.
Yes, I know. I'm not proud of it.
I got one question, man. That's just been on my heart. Look, we know right now women have been hotter than ever when it comes down to being in a wrestling, like just spirits, period. Like forget a revolution, like they are the ones. But who's the one to you, man? Like who's the one to you that you feel like right now, like, nah, like she's the one. Like nobody's rocking with her right now. I just want to know because I know who's got my ticket right now. Like I know who's got my ticket. Rhea's my Rhea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's just me. That's just who I am as a person.
Yeah. No. Rhea deserves to be up there. Man, it's hard. She's on hiatus right now, but it's hard for me to not pick Bianca, man. Mm-hmm. The combination of strength, of agility, and she is jacked. She is put together, and to see how crisp that 450 is clean. Also, man, and to see her WrestleMania entrances, you see a black band at WrestleMania in that way. Like we've done, we've seen like Black Choirs, we've seen and whatnot, but to see the culture come out like that way for a black woman in a spot like that to me is special. That to me has never been done before. Rhea deserves to be at the top of your list. I'm not going to take anything from you. But I'll say right now, even though she's on hiatus, Bianca's still at the top of my list.
That's real.
She brought our Divas of Compton too. That's dope, man.
That was incredible.
Dope.
Big E, man, I have to ask you this question.
Hit me.
We all love Kofi Kingston. This is a pro Kofi Kingston podcast, so we were very happy to see him.
Yes. All right, this is cool.
We was very happy to see him become the very first African-born champion. So when he lost that title in mere seconds to Brock Lesnar, we were hurt. I want to know what was going through you guys' mind.
We were all hurt. I always take my hat off to Kofi because he's probably the most even-keeled person I've ever met. Like horrible things can happen, and he's just steady as a rock. And I think it's a lot of the reason why he's been able to, last so long. It's not just from a physical standpoint, but like it's not easy. A lot of things that you have to go through, ups and downs, of booking, of pushes, all those things. To do that for 15 years or however long it's been is very impressive. But yeah, man, it's obviously I can't say too much, but what I will say is the hurt that you felt, we felt that hurt too. Okay. We felt that hurt too. It was deep. It's always, sometimes things can have an ending. They can have a certain result, and that result might not be the way that you want it to be, but you can accept it. But sometimes it's the way you go about getting to that end that bothers you more than anything. So there you go. That's my explanation.
Appreciate
I was
you.
I was in a stable center sick. I was sick,
Yeah, you was
man.
alive.
4 seconds. I'm like, bro, come
Yeah.
on.
Oh, you
I
were
was
in the
there
building.
live, man.
Cooley
Yeah,
was there. Cooley
Big
was
E.
there.
I saw you
yup.
dancing. I saw you dancing on the ring like this. I saw that.
I shouldn't have been dancing on that day.
Oh,
I
that-
shouldn't have been dancing on that day.
Yeah, man, it's crazy.
No, but I feel like it's incredible.
So
that
I
you
got a
guys
question
keep
too,
a good
Biggie.
attitude.
You got to, man.
Yeah.
You got to, or the business will drive you insane if you don't.
Facts. So I got a question. I know most wrestling fans, they built their memories off nostalgic, and we're in a boom period right now. Obviously, this current era is amazing. It's incredible. What is your favorite era? Your favorite wrestling era?
You're right. Everything, it's hard to remove the nostalgia from wrestling. But I think it's the same way from hip hop. Like, it's hard for me to not say that the mid 90s is the golden era of hip hop. Like, for me, it is. Cause those are my formative years as well. But I would probably say like the Attitude Era, like everyone says it. Like everyone who's old like me says it, but how can you not? Like when WCW, again, watching Nitro every Monday. It was really a great time. Now is obviously an amazing time as well. But yeah, man, those were my formative years. Those are the years that really shaped me. So yeah, I got to say, like, my favorite era of wrestling was the mid 90s, man. You just had the Monday Night Wars were so much fun, man. So much fun. Like going back and forth and WCW taking over for a bit and killing it in the ratings and WWE trying to respond. Like, it was just a really fun time in the company. So yeah, that for me, those are my formative years. So that's my answer.
I also wanted to ask you, like, you're a pretty decorated wrestler. Let's just keep it a stack, man. I mean, the things that you've done in this company, I mean, you have a dream career, in my opinion. But you are very much part of a very esteemed list, which is Black WWE wrestling champions, right? And I just wanted to ask you how that felt to be part of such an esteemed, like, very minimal list.
Yeah.
And how that resonates with you in your career.
No, man, I'm really, really proud of that because I think it's a really dope group as well, man. Especially we did something special about a year ago, I think it was. And there's this picture that we all took with the WWE championships. It's me, Kofi, and Bobby. And to be, those are to have all my contemporaries there as well. I take a lot of pride in that, a ton of pride, man, because I often think back to like representation and what we had when I was a kid growing up. And I will never disparage anyone who had to do the things they had to do to make a living. But oftentimes us as Black performers, we were not always allowed to be placed in the best light. We had to lean into stereotypes and a lot of stuff that was, harmful, I think, for kids to see and have this idea of, oh, that's what a Black man is. That's what a Black woman is. And they're in these positions that oftentimes are degrading. So for me to now get to a point where like I really felt like I fought to be myself in that position, to win the WWE championship as myself. A lot of people were telling me, you got to be more serious. You got to do this. You got to do that. But I always thought, like, I've been in this business long enough. Like, I always want to sink or swim on my own merits. I feel like I know myself and the way I want to portray this character and the way I want to carry myself better than anyone can ever tell me. So for me to be able to do it as myself, regardless of how the reign actually went, but to get to that point, to wear that title, that prestigious championship too, is something that I'm really, really proud of. And like you said, to do it alongside my brother, to do it with Kofi, to do it with Bobby, who I have a ton of respect for. I remember when I first got signed, I was studying Bobby. I see this dude who's super explosive, just an athlete. And I was watching a lot of the matches with him and Cena, around like 2009. So I think they're matches from like 07, 08, a lot of that stuff I was watching. I was really into just trying to learn more about Bobby. So to have him come back and somehow, I don't know if he's aged in reverse. He definitely hasn't really aged. I don't know. He might be a cyborg.
It's crazy.
I'm not sure he's human. He's a great dude. He's actually a great human being. So that makes me think, all right, he's got to be a human. But otherwise, like, this man is ridiculous physically. But yeah, man, I think it's a really great group of WWE champions who are Black. So for me, it was an honor, and I'm really, really proud of that. That's a moment that I'm so grateful that I got to be a part of.
Yo, so Big E, one of our favorite wrestlers, or one of my personal favorite wrestlers, has always been Dolph Ziggler. I've always felt like he was very much a modern day HBK. Describe what it was like being on the road with Dolph Ziggler as a young Big E, because you were paired with Dolph Ziggler and AJ Lee very early on in your career.
Yeah, man. So I was so fortunate and blessed, man. I always think about it. So when I got called up, I was doing the NXT, the 5 count gimmick in NXT and whatnot. But it was interesting because I was in NXT being this charismatic babyface doing this 5 count, and then they told me when I came up, no, you got to be the stoic heel. So it was switching in and out of very different personas for a while. But for me to come up with Dolph was just the best opportunity. For one, my debut. The first time people see me on TV is in Philadelphia. It's the night of the Slammies, which I don't know why we don't do the Slammies anymore. Bring back the Slammies.
They haven't.
But but I want it to be like the Golden Globes. Like we all sit down. Imagine a bunch of wrestlers in like a banquet hall or something. We're all in our gear and random fights break out. I don't know. But anyways, bring back the Slammies. I got some ideas. But to come up and I leave John Cena laying to close the show in Philadelphia, standing over his body. Like that to me, like what a great way to come up. But I also love that I got to kind of slowly get my feet wet because I wasn't having to wrestle 15, 20-minute matches every night. When I thought I was ready, but you're not really ready. Like I was not ready at that time. So to be able to come up as Dolph's heater, to be there with AJ, who are super established, they're super over. And I got to learn, even just being there at ringside on a nightly basis, hearing the crowd, seeing how they had the crowd in the palm of their hands. So I got called up in, I think it was December of 2012. And it was like a couple weeks later, I'm at the ring, cage side, steel cage matches, Madison Square Garden, John Cena, Dolph Ziggler, main events. Like I'm like 2 weeks into main roster career, and I'm there for these massive matches at MSG. We go to Detroit, we all around. So it was just a great learning experience for me. And then we traveled together too. So being in the car with Dolph and AJ, hearing their ideas, trying to fill this bond, to make this thing of ours work, to me was just such a great experience. For one, I got to learn how to work within a group, which I didn't know at the time was going to benefit me moving forward with the New Day. But I think the world again of Dolph. And there was a moment where I turned on Dolph, and then we get to work a bunch of matches. We worked a mixed tag at SummerSlam as well. But I was everyone that works Dolph considers it a night off because he's so smooth, so incredible. The way he sells, I have never met anyone who sells as well in this modern era. I think he's the best seller there is. Yeah, I have a ton of respect for Dolph as well. I'm right with you. He's the man, an incredible wrestler. Still, to me, has a lot left in the tank as well. So I'm intrigued to see where he goes and seeing how his career flourishes. But it was just a great way for me to come up and to get established, and AJ as well. Just such a great promo. Really, in many ways, like damn near a pioneer in many ways in women's wrestling. Felt like she was doing things that no one else really was doing at the time in women's wrestling. So I feel really fortunate to come up with both of them.
Well, we can't mention
all right,
AJ.
E, I wanna.
We can't mention AJ without bringing up her other half, because we all see the rumors out there. CM Punk. Do you? We don't know. Is he? Isn't he? Big E. Tell me something. Do you think that CM Punk would be?
I truly know nothing. I know nothing. If I did know something, I mean, obviously I couldn't say anything either. But I honestly don't know anything. I'm on Twitter like y'all. I'm on everything like y'all. But look, man, whatever is good for the industry, whatever is. I wish Punk well. I wish wherever he lands, I wish it well. I know nothing, and I'm still under contract with the company. They still pay my bills, so let me not get into any trouble.
Right. I had to shoot.
E, I got two questions for you, man.
I understand.
I got two questions for you, my guy. First is, do you have a top 5 in wrestling?
Top 5 currently or top 5 ever?
Ooh.
Ever. Do you have a top 5? I don't have a top 5 ever. That's why I'm asking.
I
have a top 5 currently, but not ever.
So I typically, my go-to is usually, I hate making lists of any kind, honestly, because I always feel like it's in flux. It always depends on my mood, and art is always so subjective. And I think of pro wrestling as performance art, so it's always hard to say. I will say for my personal favorites, I'm not saying the best ever, but my favorites, if I had to pick 5, Ron Simmons, Vader,
Let's go.
Scott Steiner, Goldberg, and I gotta pick one more. Gotta pick one more. Damn, this one more is killing me right now. Split one for Kofi and Woods. There we go. Just melt them together. That's 6, but that's the list. All right, that's all I got.
And then the last one is regarding your tenure in WWE. We have to just speak on the importance of the New Day. Just because of how much New Day has accomplished in wrestling. I mean, obviously as being a wrestling faction, but just the influence in wrestling, period. I just want to ask, when you guys came together like Voltron, or the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Megazord, to form this group, did you guys ever think that you guys would be as important and integral to the history of wrestling as you guys are now?
I don't think so, and I don't want to speak for them. For me personally, I thought when we first came together, it was very clear we had chemistry, like a lot of chemistry. And I already had worked on a group called The Plan in FCW with Woods, so I already knew how smart he was. And again, it was kind of, we wore white and red, which was, when you see him wear that white and red suit. I don't know if it was the same suit, but it was the same color scheme from when we had The Plan. And The Plan was Byron Saxon at the time was a wrestler. So we had Saxon in the group. It was me, and it was Abraham Washington. And I don't know if y'all remember Abraham Washington.
Yes.
But this man could cut a promo like nobody's business, man. And a great athlete. Like, I always thought he was going to take off. I don't know if you remember his talk show he had on ECW.
Yeah, on ECW.
With Tony Atlas. Yeah, would just sit there and do the laugh. But anyways, so we had this experience working together on a group. And I think for us, it was, Woods realized he had kind of just come up and his career was already floundering. He calls it the worst debut of all time. And I don't know if he's wrong. It's not great. He comes out as R-Truth's friend, and they don't really even introduce him. He's just on screen for a little bit with no explanation. And then he just kind of goes on to get killed every night for, months. So this man is doing nothing in his career. And when he talks to me that night, I dropped the IC title to Wade Barrett, who was really hot at the time doing the Bad News Barrett stuff. And I knew I was floundering as well. The writing was on the wall for me. And then eventually we ended up getting with Kofi, which was Wood's idea. My only concern was that I thought for this group to work, we needed to be heels. And I thought they would never let Kofi be a heel. So that was my one concern. But I always respected Kofi, always loved his stuff. But, all 3 of us got together. And very, very quickly, it didn't feel like it took long at all. We realized we saw the business the same way. We were all excited to do something unique and different. We all needed something. It was such a relief to go to Kofi because, he's established. He doesn't need us. But, at the time, he's talked about considering retirement at the time. And this is 2014. This is, and he's just not really fulfilled, trying to figure it out. And he's like, maybe do I want to move on? But for the 3 of us to get together, and we just started traveling together. One of the saving graces, too, was even before we were on TV as the New Day, Michael Hayes was booking the live events. And one of the great things was he signed off on us doing live events together. So we had months and months before we ever even did the vignettes or wherever we ever got the thumbs up on being a group officially. We got this opportunity. So we're doing house shows on a weekly basis. We're in the car traveling together. We're shooting ideas around. When we're home, we're texting each other ideas. We're emailing ideas. In our spare time, we would even go out. We'd have these ideas for vignettes because we always thought, just don't go to Vince and just pitch an idea. Don't just verbally give him an idea. Let's show him an idea. Let's actually shoot something. Let's let him know so he doesn't even have to stretch his mind to imagine what this pre-tape would look like. Let's go to him and say, here it is. Here's a laptop. Here's a screen. This is exactly what it looks like. So we would go out and we would buy wardrobe. We would get stuff. We were just spending so much time working on this thing because we really wanted it to work and we knew we had something special. So I can't say that we knew we were destined to, set a record that had stood for 20 years with the longest reigning tag team, now held by the Usos. But, we broke a record that has stood for 20 years. Like all the things to get an opportunity to have this long promo seg with The Rock, to see Kofi become a world champion, to see Woods become king of the ring, just all the incredible things that we've been able to do over the last 9 years. I can't say that I knew that we would get to that height, but I knew we had something special. And that's why we wouldn't allow ourselves to give up on the New Day, to give up on our group. We wouldn't give up on ourselves. In many ways, when people laughed at us or told us this idea wouldn't work, it brought us together even more. There was never a moment where it was like, I don't know about this, or maybe I need to get out of here. It was, all right, we'll show you. It was us against the world. It was that feeling like, we're not going to be denied. We're not going to be told no. We're going to make this work. And even if we do go and say, all right, here's our idea, and he says, nah, all right, we'll come back. We'll be back next week with a new idea. We'll flip it. You say no to that one? Okay, we'll come back a week after that. And so we were just persistent. And I think that's what it was for us, is just, we just refused to be told no. We refused to stop, man. It was that important for us to get this thing off the ground because we just believed that much in what we had to offer. So I will say we knew we had something special. We knew we had something to offer. I didn't know if I knew that we would get to the heights that we got.
Wow.
Sheesh. Incredible,
That's
man.
crazy.
Incredible. Well, listen,
Amazing.
Big E,
Thank you.
I just want to let you know, we truly, truly, truly appreciate you for doing our show. You are always welcome back. Whenever you want to be on, we will have you with open arms. And I just want to express to you how much you mean to us. You are one of the most incredible wrestlers that we've ever seen. I like to call you a black icon because that's what you are, a black icon. You deserve all the flowers. Every single one of our episodes, we like to give our flowers to our favorite black wrestlers, both past and present. And I think this week, there's no better choice than Big E. So, Big E, you are our black wrestler of the week.
Yeah, facts.
We love you.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate you for joining our show. Everybody, make sure you go out there. If you're out there, make sure you're following Big E's Instagram page. Big E is hilarious. He's going to all these college campuses. And it's lovely to see. We love it. We love it. We hope to see you on TV wrestling one day again. But if you never step foot in that ring again, you've done enough for us to be appreciated. So we truly love you, Big E.
More than that.
Man, thank you so much for those kind words, man. For real. I really appreciate y'all. I appreciate the love. So thank you for having me on, man. This is really fun. I appreciate it, for real.
So we just wrapped up this Big E interview, guys. That was incredible. That was fun.
Yeah,
no,
man. Had a really good time. Shouts to E, man. Shouts to E, man. E is one of those. First off, E is a homie. I've known E since 2016, just on some DM, talking about life and barely talking about wrestling, honestly. So honestly, look, him being on this pod, I thought probably, we talked for a little bit, maybe 20 minutes, nothing crazy, man. We spoke to homie for an hour, bro.
Right.
I was not expecting that, man. Was not. Shouts to me, for real.
Shouts to Big E, man. This is probably, clearly the first wrestler I ever even held a conversation with. This is dope. I'm proud to say I've known Big E for a whole hour now. Not as long as Sylvan, but a whole hour, So I feel really great about that. It was a great experience, man. Can't wait to have him back.
I got a couple wrestling homies, but that was definitely the biggest. So shout out to Big E for doing this podcast. We truly appreciate you. And he was giving it up. He was giving it up because he was comfortable. He was comfortable because he's around people like him. This is why I keep saying that we need black voices in this wrestling space. Because look at, you just saw the result of it. He's one of us. But yeah, that was huge, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to Big E.
It's really dope too, man. Him speaking just on the inspiration of behind our heroes, Brock, and how that was influenced a lot by George Floyd, and him using his platform to create something that bridges between rap and black history and children. I was just yo, man, this guy is and granted, I've known about this, I've known about him doing this, but man, him emphasizing where that inspiration came from, it's yo, this is what this is all about, this is the stuff that we live for, especially on this pod. So you ain't wrong, Quan, for real.
Hey, they're gonna be out there. They're gonna be like, how did this podcast get Big E? How? We industry plants, baby. Look it. I'm letting y'all know right now. We industry plants. We was born in this and sprouted from the ground. Know what I'm saying? No, I'm just playing. But shout out to Biggie for doing the podcast, man. That was major. That was definitely major. Now, fellas.
Yeah, I'm not lying. I'm not playing. We definitely industry plants. Let's get it. You know what I'm saying? We are here to succeed, baby.
Hey,
you know what I mean?
Shout
we're
out.
poised to be great. You know.
Shout out to my girl Bobby. You know what I'm saying? She a plant just like me. But fellas.